Hey everybody, hope everything is going well for you guys. So far so good on my winter break. I'm recording my tier list video and this back to back. That's why I'm in the same exact outfit. And I hope you guys love, I didn't mention it in the first one, I hope you guys love my capybara bucket hat because my hair is a mess. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. So you'll probably see, I don't know, maybe a post on my Twitter about it. Follow my Twitter. But today's video is going to be another character examination, and this is one that I've gotten a few requests for, not as many as the Nathan Prescott video, but this has certainly been up there. We're going to be looking into Warren Graham and his sort of backstory, and mainly, is Warren someone that we should be concerned about? Is he as nice as he appears to be? All of that is going to be answered in this video, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Warren Graham was born on November 20th, 1996. This makes him about 16 years old at the time of the first Life is Strange game. He's younger than a lot of the other students, and I do think that that shows in his personality in terms of his sense of humor, and also the way that he sort of expresses his feelings for Max. It's very clear he has a crush on her, and it's also very clear that he does not know how to act around a girl he likes, but I will say he's probably acting better than some other teenage boys would. Warren is actually pretty well liked by the staff at Blackwell Academy. The principal recognizes his excellence in academics. That's my best Principal Wells impression, your academic excellence. I don't know, that's probably going to cut that. Anyway, he's well recognized for his academic excellence because he has a 4.0 GPA and he's also part of various high-level courses and seems to be pretty darn good at it. He's also very clearly a tech whiz as he pirates movies for his friends, such as Max. Warren's room number is 109 in the boys' dormitory. And just to paint a picture of how much of a nerd Warren is, he loves to play World of Warcraft. We know this because Max makes a joke to him about a bubble hearth, and then he also replies to one of her texts with Kek, which is apparently LOL in Orcish, which I did not know. I only knew Kek from like the 4chan stuff, so that's why I was a little weirded out when I first read that, but apparently it does originate from WoW, so. Warren is also a big fan of Doctor Who and the X-Files. The X-Files because his license plate relates to the show, and Doctor Who because he makes many, many references to the show. His email profile icon is the TARDIS. He also refers to himself as the Doctor as a joke sometimes, and that's obviously the protagonist of Doctor Who. Another thing that, it's not necessarily him, but in the episode 5 sort of maze hide-and-seek sequence, one of his lines is, "Hey Max, come out and play," which is a reference to the Warriors as the leader of a gang says the same line. Not very much is known about Warren's family. We pretty much just know the very basics. We know that he has 2 guardians or parents. We can't necessarily tell the genders of them, so he could have 2 dads, 2 moms, a dad and a mom. We don't really know about that, or if they're his adoptive or biological parents. There's no specification on that, so it's really left up to interpretation. We know that their house number has a 32 in it, and the street name starts with an S. Whoever his parents are, or his guardians, they are clearly very caring, and he even implies at one point that an A- grade would be disappointing to them. Now we're going to get into a list of Warren's friends. So we'll start with the obvious, Max Caulfield. Him and Max are fairly close. From the sort of brief outside perspective, it just seems like, oh, he's head over heels for Max, and she just kind of plays along because he does stuff for her. But if you look a little deeper, it appears that they do really, really get along. For one, a lot of the references that he makes in the parking lot when talking about movies, Max is right there with him. She's keeping up, making the same jokes or jokes about other very specific movies. We also know that they play World of Warcraft together because Max is the one who makes the first World of Warcraft joke. Now, it is possible that, maybe she's just saying it because she knows he likes it, but I believe in my Max Caulfield character video, we did confirm this because we have a list of like her online aliases that she uses, and I believe it's one of her like WoW accounts is named one of those things. But either way, these two are fairly close friends. especially the fact that, after Max deals with the very traumatic thing of, seeing Chloe get shot in the bathroom, then rewinding, all that stuff, having to report Nathan, she, even without the player basically saying, oh, I want to talk to you about it, she alludes to wanting to talk to Warren about it, which shows that she trusts him to an extent. Brooke Scott is another one of Warren's friends. However, she has a very clear romantic interest in him. However, in the meantime, they are friends. She's notably jealous of Max if you end up going to the movies with Warren. She's notably jealous of Max if you were to agree to go to the movies with Warren. And if you don't go with him, then she ends up going. And I don't think this is one of those things where, he had a backup plan. He was just going to ask a different girl if it didn't work out. I think it's more so that he may have, just been very open about, oh, I asked Max to go to this thing and she wouldn't go. And how, Brooke, being interested in him, immediately jumped on the opportunity to be like, hey, I want to go with you. Let's go together. That's how I've always kind of viewed it, is that Brooke is a bit more forward with him, I guess, just because she is so she's catty with Max. If you don't get the drone name right, she obviously, she makes fun of her to her face, being like, you're not smart, whatever. So I think for that reason, it's probably Brooke initiating that idea. Luke Parker and Warren have some sort of relationship, as if Warren beats up Nathan, Luke responds positively to that. He basically is happy about it. So at the very least, he doesn't like Nathan, or he knows that Nathan bullies Warren. One name that I didn't really expect on this list, however, it does make a lot of sense, is Kate Marsh. It appears that him and Kate actually have a very good friendship, or, maybe it's even a little bit of a romantic thing on Kate's side. So, for example, Warren shows a lot of concern when Kate leaves the building in distress in episode 2. He also in return, Kate also refers to Warren as a cutie pie and talks very affectionately about him. She even discusses the possibility of taking him to this tea shop that she likes if she survives her attempt. The other thing is that she seems to encourage Max, if you were to accept the date with Warren, she encourages Max to go with that. So it seems like she may have some sort of romantic interest in him, but either way, she likes him and admires him. The last person on this list is by far the most interesting because it's very much a background thing. But Alyssa is actually very close friends with Warren. They share an interest in science fiction films and also briefly talk about Max to each other. When Kate is going to attempt, Warren and Alyssa are actually holding each other, basically hugging. During that, and he's trying to comfort her, or maybe she's just comforting him, whatever it is, they're relying on each other. The other interesting thing, and this lends a lot of credence to a theory that we'll come back to, is there is graffiti in Mr. Jefferson's room that says Warren plus Alyssa, basically. Or there's graffiti like that somewhere. And to me, that just says that they're very good friends, and I'll explain my reasoning at the end when we sort of review and discuss whether or not Warren is really this nice guy, Really, Warren's only known enemy is Nathan Prescott, really, just because of their confrontations and the way that Nathan is generally just a bully to everyone. Other than the two romantic interests that I already mentioned, Stella is a romantic interest in the alternate timeline, where Max is part of the Vortex Club and all this stuff. Basically, you can see Warren and Stella together. That's also a moment where, if you interpret it, as Max being interested in Warren, she kind of gets jealous because she's like, oh, Warren and Stella, I guess they're a good pair, blah, 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 blah. A few inconsistencies with his character that are more so just inconsistencies with the game is that he's 16, but Blackwell is like a seniors only program, so it's certainly possible that he, is there for, being an early graduate, basically, or just that the idea of making it a seniors only school kind of just got pushed away by the writers, because in Before the Storm, we see many of the characters at Blackwell, so I think it's something that at this point just needs to be retconned, that it's not like a seniors-only program, that it's just an exclusive high school. There's also some people claim or think that Max writing that Warren and her are of similar age doesn't really make sense because they're about, a year and some change apart from each other. And I think, as, when you're in college, for example, there's really not much of a difference in your mind between you, I don't know, 20-year-old sophomore or something, and a 19, 18-year-old freshman. You're like, okay, we're all college students here, we're all adults, who cares really? But in high school, that 1.5 year difference can feel like a lot. So for her to write that, maybe she's just, understanding that it's a year, who cares? Or it's just an oversight by the writers. But all that to say, let's get to the real reason we're here, and that's to discuss, is Warren dangerous? Because I've seen a lot of people believe that he is, and I personally disagree. We'll just go over a few points that some people have made, and I'll basically refute them with evidence. So for example, a lot of people have pointed out that Warren appears to have a lot of romantic interests, and that maybe he's not being genuine about liking Max, rather he's just a teenage boy who wants to, sleep with a girl, essentially. However, I don't feel that this is a necessarily fair thing to say. For one, he's very clearly interested in Max, and what most people point to is, oh, well, if you turn him down, he goes with Brooke. As I said before, I believe that Brooke being interested in Warren very clearly is the type to sort of not necessarily invite herself, but when she sees an opportunity that he doesn't have someone to go with, she would be like, oh, well, why don't I go with you? Because she's very active in the fact that she likes Warren and is jealous of Max. The other thing that's pointed out is the graffiti of Warren plus Alyssa, and my theory for that is that you look at who Warren and Alyssa are. They're two nerds, and specifically Alyssa is Alyssa is the subject of a lot of unfortunate luck and also just being bullied in general. And you look at you look at this school and the sort of culture they have, doesn't it make sense for Nathan Prescott, or really any of the other Vortex Club members, to see Alyssa and Warren hanging out in a platonic sense and start being like, oh, the two losers are together, they're dating, it's the misfit nerds, they must be together, and sort of teasing them, basically saying, oh, you guys must be dating, you spend so much time together, when in reality it's just a platonic friendship. And that's something I've seen when I was in high school. People would act that way towards male and female friendships, especially if they were people who were not very high on the social ladder, I guess you could say. That makes the complete sense to me, and I know it's a lot of, well, if they saw this, but we already know that both of them are being bullied and targeted by the Vortex Club. So it's not really that far of a fetch, in my opinion. The other thing that is pointed out is that in the alternate timeline, he is dating Stella. And while that's interesting, I think ultimately, because it's an alternate timeline, we can't really take it too seriously. Because in that same timeline, the simple fact of William being alive and not dying has altered it so much that Max is now part of the Vortex Club, and she's best buddies with Victoria. And so many small things are different in that world that really, I believe it's just a butterfly effect of this little change, and this little change leads to, Warren having a class with Stella this time instead of this person, and that means they get together. So I think that's not necessarily that Warren has some interest in Stella secretly, even though he's pursuing Max and apparently secretly dating Alyssa on the side. When in reality, it's just the fact that the butterfly effect, literally anything can happen through one small difference, and this happens to be the consequence of it. The other thing that happens that I've seen some people say is that, he makes reference to very graphic films such as Cannibal Holocaust, things like that. And I think that, like I said, we have to remember he's 16, he's younger than most of the other students there, and I think he's with a girl he likes who's also nerdy, so I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's just being a nerd. He's talking about films that he likes, and then also Max replies positively if the player chooses to, showing that they have a relationship built around these nerdy movies and things that they talk about, and that she's clearly okay with it. Now, him making jokes about, babes with boobs, or whatever that line is, I mean, he just, like I said, he clearly doesn't know how to act around a woman, so. One of the more legitimate concerns is how he reacts when he beats up Nathan. The fact that if you let him, he just totally wails on him and really hurts him. And I think that one, sure, it's a little more concerning. However, there's two major things to remember. One, he near instantly shows regret. When you talk to him later, he is very regretful of what he did, and he is not very happy with himself. And if you stop him, he thanks you for stopping him. Now, the other thing is, he's been bullied for how long by this rich, annoying kid? Of course, when you finally get the chance to, sort of get your revenge, you might get carried away. And finally, I think one of the most damning things is that he appears to be trying to look into Max's window during one of the episodes. However, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. He's shown looking around the corner of the girls' dormitory, sort of looking around and then ducking back in. There's really no way he'd be able to peep into her room as she's on an upper level. So I don't think it's the case of a peeping Tom type where he's like, oh, let me see if I can catch a glimpse of the girl I like naked. I think it's more so he's anxious to talk to her, so he's like, oh, did she come out yet? Is she out yet? I think it's more so in that realm. I think the other interesting thing is that he's fairly obscured in the original game, but in the remaster, it's very clear that it's Warren, so I think that's an interesting choice. And the other final thing is that in the nightmare sequence, he is shown to be very aggressive towards Max or whatever, but this is the same nightmare sequence where Chloe and Victoria hook up, and I think really that nightmare sequence isn't what these characters secretly want. I think it's more so, what are Max's insecurities? That Warren only wants her physically, that Chloe, if she's interested in her, or I guess if you're just friends with Chloe, that your friend doesn't really like you and would actually be friends with the person who hates your guts, all those weird things like that. I think it's just supposed to be the culmination of all of her anxiety coming at her. That's just my opinion. But all that to say, my personal verdict is that Warren is not some evil, creepy guy. It's just that he's a very awkward teenage boy who needs some social skill lessons. But all that to say, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Have a great holiday time with your family, and have a good morning or evening or, whatever.